I'm going to start everybody off under the truck. Okay, this is going to be one of the most daunting jobs you guys are ever going to try to do by yourself. Maybe your cat or your wife will want to get in the way, I mean, help you. It's a very difficult job, and I'm going to explain the aesthetics of it. Besides, I have a god that helps me, a god of metal. You see, I made my holes for my emergency brake cables. Okay, because the upper and lower support just literally it just turned to dust. I mean, you can see that right there. That's what fell off of there. Once the descaler, okay. Remember I told you about my favorite summertime buddies, because a landscaper friend of mine did not know what a descaling tool is. Okay, those are my two tools. And then we're going to talk about this for a minute. Okay. Hopefully there'll be Silverados in heaven and they'll bury me with my buddies here. Because like I said, those are my favorite summertime friends. But Dale Schmidt is a god, a metal god. I think he's the one that comments about the what kind of motor oil do I use, and I always say the cheapest shit I can get my hands on sometimes. But anyway, there's your carnage. I make up long pieces. I get dimensionals. This is what fabrication is about. If you're an A&P, okay, we get dimensionals, and then once we have our dimensionals, then we cut our finer pieces out, okay, because you're working basically with the same type of shape and figure over and over again. So this gets to be old hat to some people, but not everybody. All right, now let's talk about these bolts, okay? I'm going to put you on a tripod from here, and we'll give you a little speech, okay, about what it takes to do this truck, a Silverado, and replace the cab bushings, and fix the cab supports. Okay, you're going to need metal, but getting these critters up here in the Rust Belt. Remember I told you guys, life is not the same. I watch videos on certain stuff and it just comes right apart. Now, living here in the Rust Belt, everything is seized together and it turns into stuff like this. And that can be a real bugger to get something like this apart. So that air chisel, that's why that's a little bent. This rust seizes, and then this is against that rubber, and it's rusted to the rubber. Trying to get a bolt out, you better be up to 120, 130 pounds of air pressure, and you better have a nice, like I have, an old Blue Point gun. I have a gun that has some real strength to it, okay? So not all the air guns are the same. When you're talking about a half-inch drive air gun, they're not all the same. So listen, the secret is to loosen these up. Don't soak them with oil. Another asinine thing, you see how rounded that head is? It's all, the lands on the bolt, okay? Your bolt land, okay, your shape, it's almost concaved, and it'll make a socket slip. Don't be afraid to use and pound like a 17 millimeter. I ground it off a little bit that I could, that's what this biting is. I pounded an impact socket on there. So you might be out buying a new impact socket too. But they're basically an 18 millimeter bolt. Sometimes 18 will slip. Depends on how really tight they're in there. I got lucky because I have the forethought and the knowledge now to go around with that air hammer and knock stuff loose. And it doesn't always work the first time. You could be out of bolt 15, 20 minutes to half an hour. Sometimes an hour. Sometimes you're going to end up with the smoke wrench. On these, you're not going to get a lot. You know, you're only going to be able to put heat, then that bushing's going to catch fire, and then you're going to be sneezing and wheezing in bed all night. Don't do that. But the other thing that it takes is you got to get the front fender off, because you're not going to jack the cab up with the front fender. And a lot of other trucks are like that. And that's why a lot of these trucks go to the junkyard. This is a lot of work. The fenders on this, they're pretty rotten. I'm either going to get new ones. I don't really want to fix them. It's a lot more work than it's worth. But right now, with money being as tight it is, and like I said, got a real brainless bastard there that he is not insulating the seniors and stuff from these food prices. And they're letting all these states, your special guys with those funny round hats, they're jacking up all the utility prices and stuff so they can afford they're going to afford their war in Israel one way or another, because basically Israel's become our landlords. And I hate to get political, but I always do that in my videos. There's a reason why this stuff happens on this big blue and green marble. And I'm telling you why it happens and who's behind all of it. Because you notice all the objectors in there are those ones from New York. Okay, let's get back to the truck. You're going to need maybe specs. Maybe you want to get in contact with me if you're going to do one of these trucks. I used a heavy grade structural. It's a semi-stainless, weldable semi-stainless. Does not rust. I mean, maybe in 100 years it'll rust, but it'll be enough to repair your truck. I intend on getting another 10 years out of this truck. Now, depends on what else goes wrong with it. I've got the transmission shifter cable. When you're going to do this, like me, I have a little rust in the floorboard over there. I have a whole floor pan I made up. I'm going to drop it in, and I'm going to replace that transmission shift cable. Those also rot off. Also, you might want to change. Now, those will replace the emergency brake cables. Let me tell you, the new ones, they're all cheap junk. Good luck to you, because that one snapped right after I put it in. I used the emergency brake. I think I was with my trailer. I was on a hill with the trailer, and it was pretty slippery out with the bad weather, and I just put the emergency brake on just for, just in case. I was in fear that the trailer might start pulling the truck down the incline, and I stepped on the emergency brake. I never did get that firewood. I got off that hill. I just, when that little voice talks to you in your head and says, what you're doing is a little on the dangerous side, listen to that little voice sometimes, because I just had that inclination that there was going to be a problem. And the other problem is these cheap goddamn Chinese parts. Like I said, brand new emergency brake cable snapped, so that's on its way. That's going to get replaced. It's a lot of work to rehab one of these trucks, not to mention the body has rust, but that's the easy part. Those are cosmetics. Orange Cat is here. He's ready to give the truck his CAT scan. Lucky he doesn't bill me for CAT scans. So any of you guys that are interested in how to go about this, the kit that I got, the bushing kit, I got that on Fleabay. I hate to admit it, but sometimes if I bought that kit locally, it was over $95. I think it was like 50 bucks on eBay or 60 bucks. So, and the thing is, the kits never come with bolts. That's another thing that you're going to remind me before I hang up the phone here, the YouTube phone. I made my own bolts, okay? The problem with these kits, I'm going to show you the problem with these kits. You see that? Yep, that was sweet. When you get that sitting on your mount, that bolt ends up too short by about a ½ inch. It does not go in. It appears as if it would, but when you have that cup, there's a cup that sits over here. This never fits totally down in that cup, and don't forget to grind those cups out and soak them in oil. There's a cup that goes to the mount cup. Soak those in oil so you don't get rust back, and then hit them with your wool. I don't care if it's wool wax, fluid film, the other one. And there's a good thing is if you have some new parts like that and they're brand new, okay, these bolts that I made, okay, the bolt thread. These skeeters here are getting on my nerves. Okay, that's 12 by 175 all thread. It's a hardened all thread. Use only hardened all thread. Okay, the other stuff will bend. It will rust to high hell faster than you can say, oh my God, what happened? Okay, weld your nuts. Those are also hardened nuts. Weld your nut to it, and then you'll be able to get your mount up there, okay? Remember what I said, what thread? 12 by 175 all thread. It's 12 millimeter, 1.75 thread all thread. And your nut, same thing, okay? Other than those tools and cutting devices and some sockets, just some pry bars and stuff, you're really not going to need any really advanced tools other than the air tools. I should maybe say, because I know there's a lot of people, you're not going to spin those bolts out. If you're going to work with hand tools, maybe get a little air compressor and a little descaler. They do make smaller, cheaper models. I don't suggest them. But maybe you'd have to take it somewhere and have them loosen those bolts for you if your cab's getting that bad. And then again, you're still going to need a welder. The cab supports, the lower supports were the worst. The upper supports are still pretty intact on that truck, but they are rusty. So we're going to get in there with our rust inhibitors and stuff, okay? So I want you to understand, maybe you want to have somebody loosen those bolts. And if you need a mount made up, I can give you the dimensions of those mounts, especially the rear ones. You're going to find mostly the rear ones are highly decayed, and or those front ones. I've seen other trucks, when you're lifted higher, the center mounts rot out, the center cab support. And that's not a good thing. It's just what these trucks are made out of. And I always tell people, like, I got to bring a friend back here that I did a job for at the end of the summer and get his mud flaps on his truck. Get a good set of big dog-eared mud flaps. I don't see much. They used to have those, they were like a harder plastic, a big one. And I used to see those on all the trucks. I think they were made by Bushwhacker. I don't know if you guys remember, Bushwhacker used to make the bug shields, mud flaps, and fender flares and stuff, especially for the K5 Blazers. And they had those big dog-eared, I call them dog-eared mud flaps. They were longer, they were wider, and when you had the bigger tires, they did make a difference. Depends on how high up your truck was. I mean, I never knew that you could order them in lengths. There's a company, I believe it's out in Arizona. It's a four-wheel drive off-road company. I'm going to give them a jingle sometime next week and see what I can come up with. I think they make custom-sized mud flaps, okay? But that's a big thing, is keeping that moisture, especially the snow and the salt juice, off your truck up here in the Northeast. And you guys that go in these mud puddles with them, when that mud hardens underneath, it starts eating the metal, just so you know. All right, so I covered Silverados. That's why I am the king of Silverados. There isn't nothing about a Silverado that I can't put back together. And that includes making pieces of frames and everything else. If you're in Northeast Pennsylvania and you want to get in contact with me, hit me on YouTube. Hit me in the comments section. You want to get your truck here, especially if you want it rust coated underneath and stuff. You're going to have it another few years, especially, you know, a lot of you guys, these trucks are getting to the age, you put a new motor in them already, you put another transmission in them, and then, you know, you're sending them to the junkyard. I love you guys, because I get some beautiful brand new crate. I have a brand new crate engine, a 5.7 motor. I offered it to my son. My son balked. I bought it. I went down to the salvage yard. It's on a pallet. It's stashed. It's mine. So if I need another 5.7 motor, I do need a 454 from the 90s, like a 91 to 95, 454. Okay, I'll take it all the way up to 98. I need a 454 for my other truck. Thanks for watching my videos. I gotta get to work. Thank you.